Welcome back, everyone. I went ahead and you guys already know I've had these iPhones laying around for quite a bit of time. And with the iPhone 10, 11, and 12, these are like the sequential numbers in order. These are the 2017 flagship. But then what Apple did was they no longer kind of used the numbering as to, determining which one is the higher end model. This was the first time in a long time where they went ahead and switched over from the iPhone, 10 to the iPhone Pro models, the Max models, and then we had the iPhone 12, 12 mini, 12 Pro, and 12 Pro Max models. The iPhone 12, although was kind of a strange phone, this was the most amount of devices that we had released at one time, which was in 2020. Now in 2018, this was the next iteration of numbers. So 2017, the iPhone 10 came out. I think I said earlier in this video that this was 2018. This was 2019. This was 2020. So we kind of saw a stopgap year between these, which was the iPhone XS. But since 10s is not a number, I kind of didn't want to bring it into here. Now looking on the back, all these iPhones are the white models of all. Now it's kind of hard to tell over the camera which one is which, but these are technically the white models and they look completely like different colors. The iPhone 10 looks kind of more like a, pale type of white, almost like a unsaturated type of white. It looks kind of strange. It's almost like if you're not using your phone on True Tone, this is kind of what white would look like. And then we have the iPhone 11 with more of kind of like an eggshell white. I don't know which white you would call this, but it's very interesting that they all have different colors. This one is probably my favorite looking white in my opinion. The iPhone 11 in my opinion had some of the best colors that came out for it. And then we had the iPhone 12 color, which was kind of like a warmer pink. Again, I think it's kind of hard to tell over the camera, but it looks almost like it has a pink hue to it, which I'm totally okay with. I think it looks great, but it's very interesting that, Apple went this approach rather than the previous approaches with the, previous iPhones. Now, what I would definitely tell you is when you look at them on the back, you may be able to tell some differences, maybe not. Again, the camera modules are completely different on all of them for the most part too, at least for these two models and these two models, but they all kind of have the same thing going on with them, which is so interesting. So with the iPhone 10, this was a 2017 flagship, and this device really screamed flagship. This was one of the biggest differences we've seen from any previous iPhones, and this is, a 2017 phone. This is probably the last monumental device from I think I would say the 13 Pro now is a little bit better. But this device was crazy in my opinion. We had the stainless steel band around it. This phone still feels like a $1,000 phone for sure. And on the front, we had this beautiful 5.8-inch OLED display. And this was the first time we had an OLED display on an iPhone. And even when I still pick up this iPhone and I use it, I'm still surprised how good of an iPhone this is. This thing has a bunch of, just features within it. And it still is getting more features as far as we know. And this device is going to be supported for many, many years to come. So without a doubt, I'm really happy with the iPhone 10. And I think it's a very, very good iPhone for sure. Now with something like the iPhone 11, I think this is also a really interesting device. This was a 2019 budget phone. So technically not a budget phone on paper, but it was, I guess, we didn't have the iPhone SE at this time because the iPhone SE came out a couple months after this. This was one of the cheaper iPhones you could buy at $699. You could still buy an iPhone 10, I believe, but this thing at $699 was a really good value. This thing brought a lot of capability. It was cheaper than its previous generation, the iPhone XR, at least on launch, and this thing had a lot of capability. You had a dual camera setup just like the iPhone 10, but you had a ultra wide sensor here. So this is where you're starting to get a little bit of some differences. A telephoto lens here, but an ultra wide sensor here. And in my opinion, the ultra wide sensor is more superior. This was also the first iPhone where we got 4K at 60 on the front and the back. So the fact that we could do 4K at 60 not only the front of this iPhone or the back, but the front as well is so crazy to me, and I was so happy about that. Now another big thing is with the panel, 6.1-inch IPS panel. It was a Retina panel, and I do think it was pretty good. 750p, again, was it perfect? No, I wish it had an OLED panel. We didn't get OLEDs back on the base models until the iPhone 12, but I do think this was a really cool iPhone. And when I look at this device, I think it was probably one of the more important iPhones Apple has ever made, and I think it's probably my favorite iPhone right now to recommend to people, just because it's so much cheaper and it has so much capability built in. Now we do have the iPhone 12 as a final little device, and this was, I think a decent iPhone. I will be honest, when this iPhone first came out, I was really excited about it, and then there were some issues that happened, and I think it was a little weird, but we'll look back on the iPhone 12, and I think we'll say, this iPhone brought a lot of stuff to the table. It brought, the full-on glass back as the previous iPhones had, but this thing had the MagSafe charging right here. All these other iPhones, the 10 and the 11, do not have MagSafe charging within them. They all have wireless charging, but this one you can add that little puck on the back, and that will actually go ahead and allow you to wirelessly charge your phone and have some MagSafe accessories as well, which not that many people actually utilize, and not that many people have made MagSafe accessories besides like Apple and some other people. Now we still had the ultra-wide sensor here, 4K 60 on the front and the back, but when I turn this iPhone, this is where you start to see the bigger difference. This device had a flat side to it. Now when you look at the iPhone 11 and the iPhone 10, all of these iPhones have the curved sides to them, which is cool, but the flat side, I will definitely tell you, is a much better design, and I'm a huge fan of flat sides on these devices. It really makes the phone feel so much more premium, and it makes it feel just so much like a newer device. This is the way of the future, and I'm glad phones are probably going more down this direction. Now, this is where things start to get a little bit interesting. So this device on the front had an OLED panel. Compared to the iPhone 11 and the iPhone 10, these devices, the iPhone 10 had an OLED panel, which I think was actually better than the iPhone 12 in some areas, but the iPhone 11 did not have an OLED panel, which I find very interesting, and I'm surprised even more so that they even added an OLED panel to the base models. I thought they were going to stick with IPS panel even up until 2020, even up until like 2022, I thought they were going to do this, but they ended up not doing that, and they gave us an OLED panel here. So when I look back at all these iPhones, I'm pretty surprised how good of a job Apple did with each iteration. Again, I think the iPhone 11 is probably my favorite one to recommend to people right now, but the iPhone 10 is still a rock star. This thing is still a really solid device, and I'm a humongous fan of this. If you are on a budget, right? If we're looking at a price standpoint, I would probably recommend going for the iPhone 10. If you're somebody who has maybe around $200 to $300 to spend in the used market, you cannot buy this thing brand new anymore. So you have to go in the used market to buy it. Is it worth it? I would probably say go for it. If you have about $200 to $300 to spend, and if you're wanting to go ahead and buy a phone that is going to be supported for the next like 2-3 years, at most probably 3 years, this thing is a solid option. I would probably recommend going for it. Now with the iPhone 11, this is still a really good iPhone that you can buy brand new. Is it the best iPhone right now? No. It may not even be the best iPhone for the price tag. I think the iPhone 10 or the 10R may be going there because it is a substantial amount of difference. But for $499 brand new, I don't think you can go wrong with this device. I think this device still has a long future ahead of it, and I would recommend you, if you're in the market, buying something like an iPhone 11, it's not really a bad choice. I think this is a really, really good idea. Now, with something like the iPhone 12, I think this is a very solid option as well. I will definitely tell you, with the iPhone 12, it's good, but because of the issues that the iPhone 12 had, it kind of makes it a weird recommendation. If Apple could just make some sort of service repair program for the battery, I think I would feel much better just kind of recommending it to people. But as of right now, this iPhone is probably the one I would not recommend buying. I would just recommend buying these two if you want. But if you are planning on buying an iPhone 12, I would just recommend buying an iPhone 13 at that point. The 12 and the 13 are very similar in price tag, and I would just probably recommend going up to the iPhone 13 at that point. The iPhone 12, if you have it, keep it. If you plan on keeping it forever, then go for it. But I would recommend going up to that iPhone 13 price tag. Although the iPhone 12 is still there if you want to buy it, the 12 mini is also still there. The iPhone 13 kind of fixes everything that I didn't really like too much about the iPhone 12. It gave it a bigger battery, gave it kind of better cameras, which I wasn't complaining about before, but it doesn't seem like it has that battery degradation issue that the iPhone 12 had. So because of that, I would probably recommend buying something like an iPhone 13. But regardless, I think each one of these iPhones were very, very important. And when the future comes out, or when we are in the future, and we pretty much look at, the iPhone 10, 11, and 12, and we pretty much look at, all these iPhones and the impact. I think the iPhone 10 is probably going to be one of the most impactful. The iPhone 11, super impactful. The iPhone 12, I think, will probably start to grow on people a little bit more, including me. It's growing on me a little bit too. So that kind of covers it up. If you have any other questions or thoughts, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.